guys? Joe Szymanski here. How do you like that, Mason Nation? Another big win for your Patriots today. Student section absolutely showed out. Go Green and Gold. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while, but it's time for another Onward to Victory podcast. Palmer, we're almost there, buddy. It's 24 days until George Mason basketball is back. It is 3 weeks from Monday. Are you excited? Because I'm pretty excited, Palmer. I think everyone should
I'm
be.
very excited.
Home opener on November 4th. I can't be there because I've got a job that makes me not be there. Palmer will be there because he's still
I
a
will be there.
student. So Palmer will
Yeah.
get to be there still. So if you see Palmer is good at this. Palmer, you got someone like Palmer. He knows what he's doing here. Palmer is doing an excellent job. He will be there on opening night. Sadly, I will not. I have job-related activities I'm going to need to take care of here in Pennsylvania. But the season is almost here, Palmer. But we have, I think, a little more of a focus on the future in this podcast. And if you listen in more, you'll see why. So let's start off with some good news, Palmer. Since the last time we spoke, the 2025 class officially has its first member for your Patriots. And I'm so happy to say, finally, the first time since I've joined this great community of Mason Nation, there will be a Pennsylvanian on the roster at George Mason University. Devin Booker from the greatest city in the world, Philadelphia, will be coming to George Mason. He's a 3-star recruit out of Philly. Palmer, tell me what Mason Nation could look forward to with Devin Booker.
So his big thing is he will be 3-D early on, and he has upside to just kind of be like, create his own shot. So early on, he could be, role player. But, when if he stays here for 4 years, I could see him being, like one of the one of the top options on the team who can kind of make his own basket.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy. This is a guy who didn't start playing basketball until the 8th grade. And if he's a 3-star prospect already for a guy who's only played basketball for really at a high level for 4 or 5 years now, and he's already considered a solid 3-star, that should probably tell you something that we have a really athletic kid coming to George Mason. If there are 2 words I think that I've heard people describe Devin Booker with, and yes, that is the same spelling as the Sun Star. Yes, we will absolutely be memeing the hell out of that when he gets here. Let it not get twisted. But you got to talk about it. It is the 2 words that I've seen most used to describe him: intensity and athletic. Those are 2 things, as we've talked about it before on this podcast. We are sensing a growing theme in both the transfers and the young transfers and the recruits that Tony Skinn is bringing in. He wants them to be intense and he wants them to be athletic. Devin Booker fits that role to a T. Obviously, as a freshman, he's raw. He is a raw talent. There will need to be some time to build and to build up his game. There is no doubt about that. But like you said already, Palmer, you look at the tape on this guy. Already, I think for a 17, 18-year-old, already a shockingly good on the ball defender. There are some things off the ball. I think that everyone who's at that age, that's the kind of the skill that I think needs development. But when you're talking about a guy who's, again, 17, 18, who has the on-the-ball skills that Devin Booker seems to have, I think that's such a great thing for George Mason to have in their first recruit for 2025.
Yeah.
All right. And there is more news. But wait, there's more, Palmer. We had a visit. We had not just one visit, but 2 visits, Palmer. We've had 2 visits along with this since not just since the last podcast, but since the Devin Booker recruitment success alone. We've had 2 visits. I want you to talk to me about the first one of the 2. This is the one I'm very excited. Palmer knows this. I've been very high on this kid since it was told to me. We had him on our main watch list. Palmer, since day 1 of the Tony Skinn era, I've been clamoring for a young big. We have Steve Curran on this coaching staff. He's been known to do incredible things with bigs. He did it at St. Bonaventure. He did it with Amari Kelly last year. Let's not. I don't want to make that. Amari Kelly was not. I think probably one of our best play, or maybe the best player we had behind Keyshawn Hall last year at George Mason in terms of continued effectiveness. He was not that player at UNC at UNC Wilmington or Duquesne. This was a different guy after only one season with Steve Curran. He's got Jalen Haynes now, who seems to have taken an extra step. Tell me why that means how excited we should be if Steve Curran gets his hand on 2025 prime target for George Mason, Emmanuel Kanga.
So I think he had already taken his visit when Booker had committed, but we've gotten so Conga's a very good. He seems very polished for usually a big man. If you're a big man, you're coming to the A10. Usually, you're kind of a little raw. He seems pretty polished. It seems like a lot of his stuff is kind of finishing plays. Like he'll get he'll make almost seems like he'll do the stuff that's hard to teach really well, but the stuff that's easy to teach, easy, kind of struggles with. So like on defense, like when he's helping, he gets there, he gets in position, which is the hardest part. But then he does something, and like oh he still scored, but like he got in position, which makes me I feel like it seems like he has a very his intangibles are very very good. Uh, he's I believe he's 19. Like I think he's like should be in the class of 2024, but he's 19. And per Colby Giacopino, uh, who's pretty reliable. He's picking between Mason and Loyola Chicago soon. I would very much not like him to go to Loyola Chicago because
Yes.
uh, I'm
So
hoping that
it
he
is
looks.
once again though for Mason, it's a battle of the A10 teams. I didn't bring this up when I was talking about Booker, but with Booker it came down to Mason. I believe it was Duquesne and LaSalle. I think were his final three, if I remember correctly. It was known those are the three that he had taken a main visit to. We had known he'd taken a visit to Duquesne. Uh, we believe LaSalle was a little early on, but obviously LaSalle in there as the Philly school in his area and us. So we beat out A10 teams once. It looks like Tony Skinn and staff is going to have to do it again with Kanga. And again, it actually makes me very excited that Loyola Chicago is in on Kanga. Obviously, there have been some high highs in year two with Loyola in the A10, and there's some very low lows. But I will say, if there was always been, I think, consistent positive, Drew Valentine had some very good big men on those teams. And I will say, Miles Rubin is someone
Yeah,
who Drew Valentine recruited and got to the A10, who, while still very raw offensively, is a defensive monster for someone his age. That's a group that seems to do very well with identifying talent at the five. If we can beat them out for Emmanuel Kanga, I think that means we're going to have a very good piece here at George Mason.
yeah.
And to bring
Uh,
that up, this is very much speculation on our part, but I think Palmer heard this more clearly than I did. But Devin Booker, when he did his recruiting announcement, he didn't just tweet it out. We actually got someone who did it through 247. We actually got someone who was high profile enough that 247 went on their Instagram, and I believe it was Adam Finkelstein went on their Instagram and said, "Hey, who are you coming to?" And he took off his shirt and he said it was coming to George Mason. That was a great day. But Finkelstein, he said something interesting. I don't know if it was just in passing. It was kind of right at the end there, right before he cut to go. But he said George Mason should be getting more good news soon. Is that Emmanuel Kanga? Or is that the second target we're going to be talking about tonight? Jalen Rougier-Roan. Oh, Canada name right there. Let me tell you that. Canada and I believe it's Maryland area, I believe as well, where he's going to high school here. But born Canadian, Jalen Rougier-Roan. Tell me about this prospect. Tell me about him, Palmer. Position wise. Tell me what we're looking at here for Mason.
he's a I don't mean this might sound bad. He's a big guard, which maybe we don't want any big guards. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But
No more Keyshawn Hall.
he's a bigger guard. I'll say that.
Yes.
He I told you I said to you like he reminds me of Jaden Dawson, and then I said but I'm gonna keep. I have a responsible comparison. Jaden Dawson. And then I sent you an hour or two later. Like I got irresponsible. It's Johnny Davis. Like in
Yeah.
Wisconsin, Big Ten Player of the Year. Like obviously, I don't think he's gonna win Big Ten Player of the Year, but I think he could be the A10 version of Johnny Davis, college Johnny Davis. Uh,
Not, do we want to make that very clear to our DMV based fan base? Not the Washington Wizards version of Johnny Davis, the one who many people hate.
yes, but it has. I think it has to be on purpose. But he's he just it seems like he has a lot of Power Five offers. Uh, I think he's very much a Power Five. I think he's the skill, very much has the skill level to play at Power Five. I think the athleticism is holding him back just a little bit. He moves. I'll say this like he moves like a wing, but he's 6'5". So it's kind of like
Is he? So this is you're talking about. This is JRR. Yeah,
yes,
I'll shorten it there for references. But he is someone I've seen some tape of him. I think I agree with you a lot here. He
yeah,
definitely has the size to be a above. I think a P5 two guard. But I think you're right. It's the athleticism that's holding him back a little bit. He moves a little slowly. But I think you're right, though. Those are the type of guards, though, that we've seen. They have P5 offers, but they're scared that the athleticism's not there. So they come down to a high level mid major, the A10, the American, etc., etc. Mountain Valley. I would even count, consider the MVC on this. Uh, who come down and then they end up being very, very good players at this level. And they're able to develop that game to a point where the Power Fives, honestly, in this day and age, can no longer ignore them. And then they get a lot
yeah,
of money. A sad truth of the day of college basketball. But these are guys who can come in and they can make an impact on day one. And to be fair, Booker is a guy who translates more of a three. We do need someone who can step in there at the two guard next year. Jared Billups is graduating. That would leave Braden O'Connor as the only kind of true two guard we'd have. Jalen Roan would be a huge upgrade to the 2025 class, and he would be a huge key at that position if he were to commit to George Mason. And I think, again, very much potentially like Devin Booker, could see opportunities with playing time. Again, we're losing Darius Maddox next year. What does that leave the three guard position open to? Does that leave time for Devin Booker? We're losing Jared Billups next year at the two, no matter what. What position could that leave for Jalen Roan to come here and play some very key minutes for George Mason?
yeah. I think he could definitely be one of those players where he comes in right away and plays. I'm not gonna say like starting, but like
Kind of
if
like
he's
the
playing
the
not a
early
Koji,
season of Koj, I think
I
would
would say
probably
early season
be.
of Koji.
Well,
Yeah,
when he was
I don't
playing
expect him to
those
take the
15
job.
minutes a night.
Yeah, like enough that like he's playing a significant like enough that like he's not just getting his feet wet. Like no, they're actually using him out there like for
Yeah.
his skills, not just intriguing young guy. Like no, he's good.
Yeah, that which again I would compare that very much to early season Baraka and Koji, where we realized very quickly, oh, he's not just here to to get his feet wet. He's gonna play 15 to 20 minutes a night. I agree. That's what JR could potentially, vault into here if he comes to George Mason. He's taking his visit. Very exciting thing for George Mason for him to come here, to get him on a visit. That was a big deal, I think, for the staff to get him to come down here. There are a couple other targets, of course, on the list. We'll see how those develop. But before we end today, Palmer, you had a very exciting Monday this past week. It is Friday,
Yes,
October 11th today. Monday, October 7th, it was Media Day. And of course, since the Atlantic 10 tournament, not just for this year, but for next year, is coming back to the nation's capital, which means it will be much easier for me to go to this year, and for Palmer to go to, and for the entire Giant Killer / By George crew to go to this year. I'm very excited for that. I know Palmer, I think, is going to be probably more excited than any of us this year because he's actually going to get to experience one. I
yeah,
got to experience it my junior year. Palmer, you're going to get to experience this year. I'm very excited for you to be able to experience this. This is going to be a lot of fun. But because that means the media day was here in DC. It was not at Capital One Arena. It was at what's that little complex they call it
District
across
E,
District E,
District E.
District E, right across the street there. Uh, But we had Palmer on site. He was tweeting all day from the Giant Killer account on Twitter. Palmer, what was your experience like at Media Day? That was the one thing I never got to do at Giant Killer in my time as a student. So I want you to talk me through it, man, and explain to me how it went.
It was pretty cool. It was kind of scary because there were you just I was the Field of 68
Yeah.
broadcast. So I'm wearing my bright green jacket and they were like behind me. So like I realized like, oh, like in most of their shots, I'm just kind of like sitting there. That was kind of yeah. Uh, but it was just nice to see like, oh, there's this you're just sitting there, all of a sudden there's a big shadow over me, like, oh, that's 6'11" David Dixon standing over me, talking to Drew Joyce and so many of the A10s. Like that's a tall guy. Uh, I enjoyed it a bunch. I sat through the entire thing just because like I Mason was last, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna get there. I'm afraid to get there late, and maybe they'll let me in.
Yep.
So I stayed the entire time. I ended up getting to ask Skin some questions. Uh, Unfortunately, there were. I guess I didn't think about that. There's some DC guys there who also wanted to ask questions. So I only got to ask two, but it's more than one. So I
It's
asked
more
them
than
about
one.
that is more than one. So I asked him about so the scholarship spots are increasing from 13 to 15 next season, not this season, but next season.
Mhm.
So I asked him how he would change how he built his teams. He pretty much said, uh, it's he said like it's hard to play 13 guys, but since Mason is in the DC area, that just kind of leaves up more scholarship spots for guys who don't want to leave DC.
Mhm.
Maybe they don't want to. They much rather stay in DC. So he said like maybe one or two guys on their team will just be from DC that maybe could have gone somewhere else, but they really wanted to stay in this area. I think that's really good. Uh, and then I asked him about the starting point guard position, and he gave me, I'm not gonna say a non-answer, but he did not. I wasn't expecting for him to say who the starting point guard was,
Yeah,
but he
I know. I
said,
don't think anyone was.
yeah. I even asked it. I said if he knew who it was, not asking who it was, if he knew who it was. And he said he was having a tough time figuring it out, but that's a good problem to have in October. I It's coach speak, of course, but like I feel like if I feel like if I feel like with Katie Johnson is such like a wide range. If he wasn't doing well, or he you would know if he was not if he was doing well, it was not doing well, you would know who it is. You would know as quickly.
Yes.
But it's kind of like so to me, reading between the lines, I would say that right now, Quigley is ahead of Katie Johnson by a little bit, but they're hoping that Katie Johnson will kind of develop a little more in these couple weeks. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, that will be, I think, probably the main sticking point for Nation Nation going into game one. There's a big question this year. Obviously, you had both Ronnie Polite and Baraka Koji leave. Those were your top two point guards last year. That was the key position to replace. I think, not only did we have a very good freshman in Justin Begg, but we got two very talented transfers, I think, in Isaiah Quigley, who was basically the max version of Baraka Koji last year with Iona. And then KD Johnson, who comes with a lot of things. There's a lot of things that come with KD Johnson, a lot of which it should excite us. But it's not a set thing with KD. I think we've known that since day one, since he got in this team. There's a lot of things to be excited about with KD. And I think the issue of the starting point guard is that I don't think Tony Skinn has answered. Can he put KD Johnson and Jared Billups out there on the floor at the same time? I think a lot of Mason fans would say no, unless one of them sees a marked offensive improvement. But Palmer, not only were you at media day, you were at the open practice last week too, and you were singing some praises of Jared Billups. We've talked
Yeah,
about that Billups needs to improve his offensive game to, I think, Braden O'Connor has looked very, very good. I think to a lot of people in these practices, you know, and I think Mason Nation, we've talked in the Giant Killer chats, we've talked to other Mason Nation fans. We agreed with how we've seen Braden O'Connor look in this, summer and preseason practices here. That did Billups need to improve something in his offensive game? You say yes. You say you were very impressed with his mid-range game at the open practice last Saturday, I believe. Is that correct?
I think I was seeing his corner three.
Ah, corner three as well. So, I mean, these are things, though, that Jared Billups need to develop. And we've talked about this before. Because I don't know if Billups is kind of at a similar offensive production to last year, and if KD Johnson doesn't really jump up on the screen, as much as that would be an incredibly defensively excellent duo, there is no doubt about that. There is no question. That would be an incredible defensive duo. I think the coaching staff and I think a lot of Mason Nation would question if we have the offensive firepower in the front court, if both of those players are out there on the same time to deal with what would kind of be a little bit of a pretty big offensive question mark in the backcourt when both Johnson and Billups are out there. The hope is obviously that one of them shows a bit of a boost in there, can average that double-digit points a game, can be a threat. Obviously, Johnson is well known for his driving attributes, with a little bit less of a physical and athletic front course that he had to deal with in the SEC compared to coming down to the A10. That seems like the place where it could help out KD Johnson the most, get to the basket more, use his known ability to drive down there, and to help him out. But that is kind of the key question going into the season. I'm excited. Palmer, you're excited. And this has
One
been,
caveat on Billups.
you have a
Uh,
caveat.
I,
Oh, he's got a
I
caveat.
I did
Oh,
look at
yes,
my
Palmer.
notes. I looked at my notes last year, like from last year's practice I went to.
Mhm.
I think I said the same thing.
Oh,
So like the problem is like it could be real. It could be, I hope it's real.
yes.
I feel like I feel like he's making corner threes enough that like I think they're gonna have to. I'm not gonna say he's gonna as in make a lot. I think he'll probably shoot like low 30s, but I think they're gonna have to cover him out there. They can't just kind of have
They
a guy
can't leave
chill
him
with him.
be like George Washington did, and then he actually
Yeah,
made the corner threes, and that
yeah,
game devolved into a whole crappy affair for George Washington that night.
yeah.
I was there for that game. I think you were there
Good. Yeah.
too. That was fun.
Yes.
I enjoyed that. That game was over by 10-minute period in the first half.
Yeah.
But so that'd be good if we could get more of those this year. I would like more of those this year. Easy, relaxable games against GW and others. That would be cool. Big plus, by the way. The schedule also, I think, officially came out since our last video. We no longer have the MLK game against GW this year, which means no like 2 day rest from or like 1 day rest from the previous game, which in my opinion cost us the last 3 times against GW because the only times we've lost to GW the last 3 years have all been on the day it was the MLK Day game because I think our boys were tired and did not get enough rest from having to play both a Saturday and then a Monday game. GW did not always have those same conditions when we played that game. So this year, hopefully we could sweep GW, which would be lovely. I think even Palmer would say that would be a lovely thing to do, to sweep
I think it'd be a disappointment
GW.
not to.
It'd be a disappointment not to. That's right.
Yeah.
Because I don't think GW is going to be very good. Aaron Buchanan
Neither.
scares me, but not much else.
Yeah.
Anyways, it does not seem to be a good time there up in Foggy Bottom. Does Chris Caputo's defense improve? Probably not,
Probably
but we'll
not.
see. We shall see. But anyway, I think that is going to end it here for this Onward to Victory podcast. I'm Joe Szymanski. He is Palmer Johnson. He's wearing the big hat. He's going to be there on opening night in the stands for November the 4th against North Carolina Central at Eagle Bank Arena at 7 o'clock. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. It'll be a great day. Let's go, Patriots. Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you for listening to Giant Killer. This is your one-stop shop. There will be spaces again. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us at Giant Killer. There will be a post-game space immediately following November 4th game. So we hope to see you there as well. Thank you very much.